Oh, let's see, where do I start? I'm not going to give my whole testimony. I'm just going to start from the place that I was in at the time that the Lord really began to move in my life. It was a place of desperation. Um, by natural standards, my life looked like it was going pretty well. I had a roof over my head, a nice roof over my head. I had a good paying job. My husband's business was doing very well. Our children we had good children, but I was very unhappy. I was in a very desperate place emotionally, and I didn't know why. I didn't know what was wrong with me. I always felt like something was just wasn't right, and I was literally just miserable. And I can remember it coming to a head one night when I was actually in my kitchen, and there's a wall mount for a telephone on the side of the wall as you walk into the kitchen. And I had picked up the phone, and I just literally began beating the phone jack, and my husband standing over to the side looking at me, like I've just totally lost my mind, which I did. And he said, "What is wrong with you?" And I remember just telling him that, I'm miserable. There's got to be more to life than this. And I don't know what's wrong with me. That's what I would scream at him. And I remember running out my back door, and I fell on my knees on the ground. I remember looking up into the sky, and it was a beautiful night. There were just stars were everywhere. And I started crying out to God. I says, "God, if you're real, I want to know it." I said, and I said to him, I said, "There's got to be more to life than this. If you're real, I want to know it, and I want to know you." And I don't know why I said those words, but that's what came. That's the cry that came out of my heart. And at the time, I didn't know why I said those words, but I heard something on the inside of me, and it was this. I hung all the stars in the sky, and I called them all by my name. It is not my will that any of you little ones should perish. And as I often tell people, I was so ignorant to the things of God that I didn't know that was the Lord speaking to me. I had no clue. I can remember sitting there in my yard thinking, where did that come from? But yet I felt such a peace, and still did not connect it with God speaking back to me. So I went back in the house, and I remember I was looking for another job, and to make a long story short, I went to this other job, and the manager of the lot, I sold double wides, she gave me a Bible. She was a Christian. She gave me a Bible, and I remember sitting at my desk, and I opened that Bible up, and the first thing I saw was in Psalms 147, where he says he hung the stars in the sky and he calls them by name. Flip some more, and I found in Matthew chapter 18 where he says, "It's not my will that any of these little ones should perish." And I knew right then that God had spoken to me. I mean, nobody can tell me any different. I knew that God was real. I knew that he had spoken to me. And from that point on, he radically began to transform my life. And I can tell you right now, I am not a miserable person today.
No, you're not.
I'm very much full of joy.
Yes, you are.
He has just taken everything that had me gripped and just set me free from it. And I mean, I could give you a list a mile long. But one thing that has always stuck with me is, if I could tell you this one thing, if you ask God anything about himself, and if you want to know if he's real, if you want to know whatever question you want to ask him, if you ask him with sincerity, if you really want to know, he will answer you. It might not be suddenly, it might not be in the morning, it may not be a week from now, it may not be a year from now, but he will answer. If you don't know the Lord, I don't care where you're at, there's always going to be a great part of you missing, because he created each one of us for his glory. And I'm a perfect example that I wasn't rich, but being somewhat secure, that's not what makes you happy. You know, it's having a relationship with your Creator and knowing what you were created for and what you were created to do, to be and to do. That's what fulfills you.
Yeah.
Amen.
When you find what your true identity is,
Yes.
not the identity that
Yes.
you come up with on your own.
Yes.
That, you know, but the
Yes.
identity that He created you to have.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Which is
You never
always one filled with love, peace, joy, truth.
Yes. And then I went through a season where, you know, I was just overtaken with this miraculous love and, you know, a father that was actually there for me. And not understanding, you know, the more I got into the Bible, not understanding the differences between Old Covenant, New Covenant, you know, the letter of the law and the spirit of grace. You know, I got caught up in this trap even as a born-again Christian that, okay, well, I've got to perform for God. And again, to make a long story short, He brought me out of that. And He has set me free in the liberty of His grace. And I know that I know that I know that I know nothing shall ever separate me from the love of my Father, from the love of Christ. And I tell you what, until you know that love of Christ, there's going to be a void in there. There's going to be a void. There'll always be a void. And He is the only one that can fill that void. Amen.
Mm-hmm.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you for sharing.
You're welcome.